All right, this is Scotty from the Gifford Group, and today I wanted to walk you through our buy versus rent calculator. And I've seen some other videos about is it better to buy, is it better to rent, and from an overall perspective, I think in the long term it's going to be better to buy than to rent, and that's going to be my assessment pretty much hands down over the long term. And now where it gets more complicated is where if you're going to be looking at a 2 to 3, 5 year window. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. I've had clients where they've bought and they sold within a year and it made sense because the market shifted. And I've had clients that, we've worked with in the last few months that, they bought in late 2021 or early 2022, and it really doesn't make sense to sell. They're kind of upside down, trying to sell the home. So we're trying to look for other options for them on that. But today I wanted to walk you through this, or on the giftedgroup.net. You can, if you go over to home resources and our buy versus rent calculator, and you will see the calculator is going to set up for you here, and you can pick, how long, but also over here on the left side, it includes, do you want to include the breaks from home ownership, right? And some of those breaks are depending on your tax bracket. So I've included the current tax brackets for you. So if you are on the higher tax brackets, you're going to get more savings than if you're on the lower end of the tax bracket. But so it's really important to kind of know what tax bracket you are in if you are going to be including those tax breaks. So for now, we'll leave them in there because most people, one of the benefits of being a homeowner is that you do get tax breaks for owning the home. And usually those things include mortgage interest and property tax deductions, which then overall, will reduce what you can't deduct those if you're renting, right? So you don't get those deductions at all. So even if the payment's the same, you get to reduce those on your tax liability side, which then can save you money. So, all right, so let's put in. So other than how long you're going to be living there, which is let's just leave it at 3 years for now and see we're in the 15% tax bracket. So one of the main things we need to input, obviously, is the purchase price of the home and our rent. So I included, rental insurance in there. Obviously, if you have a home, you're going to have insurance in there too. And so I'll show you down where below you can kind of affect those. But let's say you're going to buy a $400,000 home, and you're going to be putting down 10%. So $40,000 you saved. And the cool thing is it kind of estimates a closing cost. It's assuming a 3% kind of rule. It might be a little high if you get to the higher end, but at least it's going to give you a good guesstimate, and then tells you total mortgage, your loan to value, and your PMI payments. And, it's principal, interest, and taxes. So you can see it's quite a bit higher already than what we pay on a rent. So we're not really apples to apples here per se, but assuming we can rent something cheaper than what we could, maybe we can get by with renting at 20. You can rent the same house, $2,500 a month versus a $400,000 home. And we can go back up, say, hey, buying is cheaper already at year 3 in the 15% tax bracket. If we move those tax breaks, maybe renting is cheaper, but with those in there. And you can see what also is updated here is the total payments of the home ownership. And we've included maintenance in there too, using the 1% rule on maintenance. And then you can see the total rents paid, which you don't get to deduct anything for those rents paid, just gone, right? And we've kind of included your starting rate, but after 3 years, we've included how much is going to include interest, inflation on rent each year too, going up, and we can adjust that inflation rate too. So you can see the total. This is why it's $3,000 cheaper to buyer, because you get to take all your deductions and everything like this. These are total payments over the years, right, of the property, and your down payment. So let's see here. So our first, I like this. I think I did this too. I thought it was pretty cool. So our first year rents $30,000. Our rent deposits rent plus deposit, total almost 100,000, and then our average breakdown per year. This is our first year cost. A lot bigger cost with the down payment and closing cost. So our first mortgage payments at 43. So we can tell we spent a lot more. If we were only 1 year, we're probably, going to be a lot cheaper if we're only doing 1 year, right? $59,000 cheaper. So it doesn't make sense to rent usually 1 year or even a year two. It's usually most of the times if you have the rent in kind of in alignment with, usually mortgages, homeownership overall will be more expensive, but you will save money over the long haul. And I know sometimes people get in the calculations, they talk about, well, I'm going to take that extra $40,000 that I didn't use as a down payment, and I'm going to put that in an S&P, and I'm going to get 10% return. Well, those returns aren't guaranteed. And so most likely, if you're trying to save money for a down payment, you're probably going to be putting it in the bank, maybe a CD. So I didn't really get into the idea of how much money or sunk cost analysis or how much money you're losing, because likely if you want to buy a home, you're going to put that money down for a down payment. If you don't want to buy a home, you're just going to invest it anyway. So this idea that you're going to take this extra money and invest it in something else in the long term, and then that's going to help determine if that's buyer, cheaper. I don't really believe in that. That's kind of horse hockey to me. But the other things I did put in here, obviously you can put, now I did have it set up as around a 7% interest rate because that's kind of what we are right now. Insurance, HOAs, and taxes are all variables you can input in this loan assumption, mortgage assumptions. So if you do know those, if in Texas we have fairly high property taxes, but those all go into the monthly payment there in this calculation. So you can choose all those if you don't have an HOA, if you have more, if you're closer to the coast and your insurance is higher, maybe that's a thing. And then also, like, can you afford this mortgage is a good, kind of a guesstimate based on your DTI ratios here. So I kind of set up initially as a 36% ratio, 28 on the front end for just housing, 36 for your overall payment. So assuming you don't have any other debts, then you can go up to 36 on the back end too. But or as high as we've seen, as high as 45. But you can. That's tells you, hey, based on your payments here, right? How much you would need to make and how much monthly that is roughly. So kind of a cool guesstimate there. And then we're assuming homes do appreciate at 4% a year, rents at 4.5%, which are pretty good guesstimates currently. And you can see the home goes up, a $400,000 home going to be up at 4%, $16,000 in value. And that's where some of this comes into play. We see that the home's value are increasing while I'm able to buy it and not I'm only putting, say, 10% down in the situation. So I put it down $40,000, but I got a $16,000 return in each year. And over the 3 years, I've earned $48,000 value. Now, obviously, you're not going to get a straight 4% each year, but overall, 4% is a good guesstimate. And if you want to be more conservative, you can, lower it. Let's say 3%. Okay, now we've got $36,000. We do have the maintenance in there, 1%. So we assume the maintenance rule says for every, however expensive our home is, it's going to cost us 1% a year to maintain the home. Now, obviously, some years will be less, some years will be more. You have to replace the roof 1 year. It's going to be more expensive. In other years, you might just be doing like, basic maintenance, AC, whatever. Maybe a water heater goes out or something like that. And so you can see, the rent increases over the years, or 3 years each total, and then how much it's going up overall. So this is how much, if rent didn't increase, and if rent increased 4% each year, then we're paying extra $1,300, and we're paying an extra $4,300 by the end of it at the end of year 3. So and what if we say we lowered the inflation, or we lowered the appreciation on the home from 4% down to 3%, renting looks a little cheaper once you associate the cost of selling the home, because we do include that in the cost of, obviously if you plan to sell the home after 3 years, because you're going to move, that's why you're using this calculator anyways. This is the total cost after your total cost of payments minus, your profit from the sale of the home, which we've included at a 7.5% cost. in there. So that kind of breaks down under this mortgage equity principal tax savings here. So um, it kind of shows you how much your principal pay down each year too, because you're paying a portion of that as principal, part of your mortgage payment is principal pay down. So you know, your this is your proceeds after you sell. This is your mortgage balance. This is your gains, and this is how much your cash after you sell the home. Um, and then you can those are your deductions there for your it's based off your interest rates up there. Uh, so hopefully this kind of shows you in your property taxes you can deduct. So hopefully this kind of each year you do it, it'll increase that. So if you did up to your 5, right, and you go back down, okay, it's about $10,000 cheaper to buy. But you can see hey, I put a lot of thought into this calculator to try to show you what a true cost of ownership would be. So I started off, I thought this would be a pretty simple calculator to build. It ended up being a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. So hopefully someone finds it useful. And hopefully, if you found this video helpful at all, you can subscribe for more videos like this and check out our other calculators we have, our buying cost calculator, our mortgage calculator, our if you're going through divorce, our divorce buyout calculator. So I put a lot of time and energy and effort to try to do these calculators. If you have any feedback for me, if you see anything you would want to add to this, or to make it even more complicated, or something that I didn't account for, or something that's wrong, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope everyone found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time.